I am going to have nightmares for the rest of my life. And I don't say that lightly. I grew up on horror films to the point that I'm quite desensitised to them at this point. I watched The Ring with my mum when I was 6 because she's an excellent role model. I love horror films, but I very rarely get scared by them. But this, okay, wow. I know Carmen Reddy used to have a thing for body horror. I didn't realise we were back in the Showa era all of a sudden. I went into this episode expecting to cry. I didn't expect to be traumatised for life. I mean, seriously, listen to this. Clearly what they did to get that soundbite is show people this clip. It's no secret at this point that my alliances are strictly with Metsubo or what you'd call a friend of Metsubo, and one day I'll be able to pronounce her better, but to be perfectly honest I had a really hard time saying metal cluster hopper the other day, and English is my first language so maybe I just can't talk at all. So how? This is a thing that exists and I have to deal with it. You know, it gets to the point in the Toku hero fandom where you're like, I really don't want Haruhi to be Arc Zero, but damn it, Arc Zero has Takaiwa Seiji's hands. I mean, if we didn't already know. I was living in denial, okay? So, to recap, Haruhi was the dad humour gear who was hacked by the Arc. He was hacked, he wasn't hacked, and then he was hacked. He's hacked now. He has no concept of free will, he cannot make decisions by himself, even protecting Jin that time wasn't a decision, it was an instinct. He has no idea why he moved by himself, and cannot comprehend the idea of doing something a satellite didn't tell him to do. He is not in control of himself, he cannot make his own decisions, the Arc hacked him, hacked, it is not Haruhi's will, it is not Haruhi no Ishi no Mamani, it is Arc no Ishi no Mamani, hacked. Just so we're all on the same page. So anyway, the Arc possessed Haruhi in such an unnatural, violent-looking way that I can't close my eyes without seeing. Thank you for haunting my nightmares. I'm in my 20s and I'm terrified, my poor Haruhi. Nakagawa said he saw thighs as a child and it scared him, which I mean, same when I was 21. I wonder how many actors in 10 years' time are going to be talking about that bloody terrifying scene in 01 that gave them nightmares. There is a moment that probably means nothing, but this is an over-analysis. There's a moment where Haruhi seems to spasm before the main taking over event happens, and given you can hear him kind of groaning as it happens, I like the idea of that being sort of the only bit of resistance Haruhi can muster before being possessed. Ikazuchi is a total sweetheart. He's given me so much life while Arc Zero is draining it from me. I'm so happy he's back. Honestly, Ikazuchi and Naki just existing, they're both so precious. I wish we had them both for the entire series, or at least a good half of it. Oh, I wish I could talk more in depth about Ikazuchi and Naki. Naki gets a rider form for next week though, and the four of them are henshined together in an image that still somehow looks like a band photo. How does that work? I really hope, not only do I really hope they get character songs individually, but I'd love like a full Metsubo Jinrai song, you know, like Revolutionize, the Time Jackers song. I just hope they get character songs. Anyway, I'm rambling. Yua says that Haruhi was supposed to just contain the Arc within himself, which still begs the question, what was the plan afterwards? Were you still just going to kill Haruhi then? But anyway, the plan was for the Arc to go into Haruhi, but the plan wasn't for the Arc to take over completely. The point is, the Arc has taken over Haruhi. This is not Haruhi acting by himself, this is the Arc. She tries to talk Aruto out of going to fight him, but Aruto says that Haruhi was starting to change, as in, you know, he was starting to gain singularity probably. He was starting to act by himself, he was starting to break free from the Arc, and he says, it's my job to protect humour gear. I don't know whether he means these two things separately, or if it's Haruhi was starting to change, and it's my job to protect humour gear, and Haruhi is a humour gear, therefore I'm going to protect him. Really hope it's the latter. Later on, the only time Aruto really addresses Haruhi is when he says, Haruhi, you're not the Arc, you know who you are, and I believe in you. Other than that, he's addressing the Arc. It's very clear that the person attacking right now is the Arc, not Haruhi. We understand that, they understand that. Haruhi is just as much a victim as everybody else. I feel such a calm tranquility. Thank you for not muddying the lines and taking the time to be bloody clear that the Arc and Haruhi are two completely different people. People just can't deny anymore that Haruhi is not a villain here. There's a difference between antagonist and villain. Horribee had no real control over what he was doing. As I keep saying, he had no sense of free will. Free will is something that we as humans naturally take for granted, and I think a lot of people just couldn't seem to grasp the idea of not having any ability to choose. Turns out, Jin and Yue have been interacting behind the scenes, and they planned to gather Metsubo Jinnai to revive the Ark to then defeat it. An AI needs a container, in this case it would be Horribee, and that's that. Was this a group decision and Jin was just doing the talking, or was this purely Jin and Yue's plan and they decided that Horribee would be sacrificed? Because if that's the case, Jin, that's your dad. When the four of them are in the Ark hole in the wall, I can't put into words the tone, but the way the Ark speaks to Horribee is just unsettling. He asks Horribee what he thinks the best course of action is, and so I'm wondering if this was a plan the four of them shared, and Horribee was in on it, hence stepping up like Jin said. Is that what he meant? Horribee was voluntarily stepping up? I mean, free will is still barely a thing he has, I assume, so I don't know. Or was it this really disturbing way of saying, oh yeah, I'm going to sacrifice my dad, in which case, rude. The Ark asks Horribee what he thinks the best course of action is. Horribee says, that is... and can't even finish his sentence before being blasted through the wall, which clearly nobody expected to happen, no one was prepared for that at all. So did the Ark know the plan was to get Horribee to contain him, and he's like, well, F you, two can play at that game. Even though he's calling Jin specifically a traitor, that still works, because he is the one who started it and potentially swayed the others. I don't know, I'm just trying to cover all bases, and I just don't like the idea that Jin had this planned for Horribee without Horribee also being in on it, because that's just awful. And I do think there's something to be said about the way Horribee looks down before attempting to answer the Ark. I have to admit, I am genuinely intimidated. It's just so... That is just so... This is one of many reasons why Takaiwa Seiji is such an amazing suit actor. His body language as Arc Zero is so intimidating. I'm scared, genuinely. And again, I don't get scared and intimidated like that, but I was genuinely leaning away from the TV when I saw this, and he's just bending down. And his movements are so different from Horribee, even though from what we've seen they both don't really move all that much. They have restricted movements, but they have different restricted movements, if that makes sense. Guy allegedly challenges Arc Zero next episode, I think, which I can only hope means the two of them are going to go off and sell a few houses and arrange some flowers. Anyway, that's all I have to say, I think. Or that's what I'm prepared to say. I'm trying to stay optimistic.
人類を彼は聖戦だ。トルビを助ける。メスボ人類ネットの友達の意志のままに。